to start off by saying thank you all for having me tonight. When Tiffany emailed me a couple of weeks ago asking if I'd speak, I immediately answered yes. I said, I don't care what I'm doing, I will be there, we'll work it out. I just have so much pride and appreciation for the Uncommon Student Program and the Hoover Presidential Foundation. It's just my hope tonight that my words will do that justice. So in reflecting on my vision for tonight's speech and what I wanted to get across, one word kept coming to my mind, and that's to pivot. And I think as humans, we're often intimidated by this concept because change is scary, and especially when we're comfortable with the status quo. But it's my personal belief that we feel the most alive amongst the circumstances that cause us to pivot. There we go. And Trigby back there might recognize himself in this photo. So turning back the clock to June of 2015, I was sitting in these seats here, like you all, anxiously being welcomed to the Uncommon Student Program at the Presidential Library and Museum in West Branch. And at that time, I had everything figured out, or so I thought. I would complete my Uncommon Student Project cash class that summer. Then I'd head back for one more year of high school, like you all, and then I'd move to Nashville and attend Vanderbilt University to major in economics. But in retrospect, it's funny how things never really work out as we plan, and that wasn't the case at all. So fast forward to the middle of that June weekend, and I was enthralled learning about the life of Herbert Hoover and all he did. I think probably like a lot of you guys, I walked into that weekend with no idea of Herbert Hoover's impressive and impactful life. And I quickly came to see that Herbert Hoover himself was a master of pivoting. First pivoting from a life in Iowa to one in Oregon, and then to another in Stanford's inaugural class. Then to a collection of pivots in his his professional life, from a career in mining to humanitarian work, the presidency, and as Secretary of Commerce. And it was at some point during that weekend in West Branch that I just had this strange feeling come over me. In one of the discussions about Herbert and Lou Henry's time at Stanford, a thought just popped into my head. I meant to go to Stanford. And if you knew me at the time, that would have been a huge surprise. I was raised in Iowa, and California was the absolute last place I thought about moving to. And additionally, I already knew at that time I wanted to pursue a career in business, and up until that point, I had thought of Stanford as a hub for computer science and engineering. Not to mention that the odds of me getting into Stanford were incredibly low, but something about it just told me I had to go out and see campus for myself. I just had to go there and see what it was all about. So, fast forward a few weeks after that, and my dad was back here today, and I took a trip to Stanford. And as you drive down the main road to campus, it's called Palm Drive. It's just beautiful. It's lined with palm trees all the way down. You can see in the left corner, standing tall above all the beautiful sandstone buildings, Hoover Tower, which you can see here. And from that moment, I didn't look back. I knew Stanford was the place I had to go. So by the Uncommon Student Presentation weekend in October, which you guys will all experience here in a few months, I was dead set on applying to Stanford. And upon explaining my plan, Leslie Hoover Law was kind enough to write me a letter of recommendation. And after a long, demanding application process, I was accepted into Stanford's class of 2020. And I would describe my first year on campus as exhilarating but difficult. I often felt out of place as a Midwesterner and felt the homesickness that sets in from being a day's travel away from home. But I was determined to make the most of the opportunity. Each morning, I made the effort to walk or bike past Hoover Tower, and this gave me a sense of home and reminded me of why I was there in the first place. In March of 2017, I was ecstatic when I received an email from Deline, Tiffany's predecessor, that 27 members of the Hoover Presidential Foundation, many of them are in the room tonight, were coming to visit California. So I had the chance to show them around campus, and we visited the Hoover Institute and even Hoover's old office in Hoover Tower, which you can bet I bragged about on campus for the next 4 years, because that's a big deal. You don't just get to walk up and do that. And this experience and the on-campus discussions we partook in that day eventually led me to pivot once again from majoring in economics, which is what I came in as, to international relations. And it also gave me that kick that I needed to pursue finding my place at Stanford. So by my second year, it was clear I was where I belonged. I embraced my background, becoming known as the Iowa girl, and taking every chance that I had to advocate for the state and tell the story of the man behind Hoover Tower and the story beyond the Great Depression. So by my senior year, circumstances forced another pivot. Just as I'm sure President Hoover did not foresee the economic depression of such grave proportions upon entering the presidency, I in no way anticipated a global pandemic of such grave proportions upon entering my college experience. So while my college career ended differently than I expected, being sent home to quarantine for my last 2 quarters, I did have the opportunity to celebrate my graduation in person and on campus just 2 weeks ago. So for those of you keeping track, this was a full 2 years after I actually received my diploma. However, and I think this is pretty cool, the international relations ceremony took place in this beautiful but heavily wooded portion of campus. And I went to take my assigned seat right next to the right of the stage, and through just a small clearing in the trees overhead, I could see Hoover Tower. So there were tens of hundreds of ceremonies taking place that day all over campus, and beyond that, 100 seats that I could have been assigned to at the international relations ceremony that would have been too covered by foliage for me to make out the tower, but from my seat I had a perfect view. So, what does the Uncommon Student Award mean to me? It means the opportunity to connect with a group of peers passionate about making a difference in the world. It means financial assistance that helps to make the expensive college experience more attainable. It means a safe environment to practice pivoting, as I'm sure many Uncommon student alumni will tell you, and many of you will tell us after this summer, when it comes to making changes in your project along the way. And for me, it also signifies the catalyst to follow a new path, to chase the challenge, to silence the fear, and to follow in the footsteps of not just one, but 2 great leaders and Stanford alumni, Herbert and Lou Henry Hoover. So to conclude, I want to assure you that I'm continuing to pursue this message of pivoting. In February, as you heard, I pivoted from my role as a software developer to become the CEO of my family's business, Almost Famous Popcorn, which you all have here tonight. And I love this opportunity, but know that my journey is far from over. While business is one of my main passions, I also hope to partake in public service and humanitarian work myself. And who knows, maybe one day we'll have a second presidential museum and library in Iowa.